Hi everyone, BritSimon here. I'm coming to you this morning to talk to you on video about the comments made by Trump in various forms. Yesterday on Thanksgiving Day, Trump talked about banning people on a permanent basis from third world countries and so on. And I woke up to a barrage of questions, a lot of people asking and talking about this. And so I really wanted to just sort of try and address it and try and explain what can and can't be done, what has happened and so on, and sort of explain the situation a little bit. So yeah, get a cup of tea, sit down. This is not going to be a short video, but it will leave you better informed. If you can take a few minutes to watch this video, you'll better understand what has happened, what is happening, what could happen. Okay, so what's this all about? Well, there was an attack a couple of days ago by an Afghan national who had come to this country on an asylum basis in 2021. He came here, funnily enough, it was due to the evacuation of Afghanistan of our troops. And he's one of the locals that stayed behind to help secure the airport to allow the Americans to leave. As part of that, obviously, this gentleman put himself in harm's way and was given an evacuation himself to safer area and ultimately gained status through asylum process in America this year. But for whatever reason, we don't know why yet. For whatever reason, he decided to go and attack a couple of National Guards folks in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, the younger of the two, 25-year-old and a 20-year-old National Guardsman, were attacked and shot. And unfortunately, and very sadly, the younger of the two has actually passed away, which is horrible. Sarah Beckstrom is her name. And I'm hopeful that the other National Guard member will pull through, but obviously a very serious attack. So that prompted Trump to talk in his way about this and what he's going to do, right? Trump isn't talking about the fact that he's the one that put the National Guardsmen on the streets of Washington, D.C., putting them in harm's way, perhaps even causing this person to do what he did, this attacker to do what he did. He's not going to talk about that, but he is going to talk about what he's going to do, and he's going to do this and that and everything else. And he's thrown around several comments that he's going to ban people from third world countries, and he's going to make that ban permanent, right? That's the sort of thing that he says. Or, but he hasn't defined what he means by third world countries. And as ever, it's sort of imprecise BS, basically, from Trump. Now, Trump has he has an acronym nickname here. He's called Taco Trump, TACO, which and TACO stands for Trump always chickens out, and that's pretty much the case. He talks a lot, he says a lot of things, but does less. And then some of what he does is stopped by the courts anyway, because what he does, if it's a particularly egregious and if it's against the law, then it's stopped by the courts. So I thought I'd better just take the time to explain to you what a president can and can't do, and what powers the president has, etc., and what takes a bit more power. So Trump can say anything he wants on Facebook and Twitter and Truth Social and everything else. He can say anything he wants in the same way that I can say anything I want, right? We all have freedom of speech. Trump, unfortunately, is the president, and so what he says, you might think carries a little bit more weight, but it really doesn't. What he says on Twitter, what he says on Facebook, what he says publicly, etc., those things don't instantly become law. They don't even instantly become an executive order. So, we have to be careful when we listen to Trump, Taco Trump we're talking about here, when we listen to Trump, he will say a lot of things, and often he's sort of testing the waters. Sometimes he's just making shit up. Frankly, he's just spitballing. He's just making things up. He goes off script. He's hilarious when he goes off script. When he's got a script to read from, he can sort of sound sensible. But when you get the true Trump, when he's actually talking off script, when he's actually saying things, he's hilarious because he's less educated about the lawful process in this country than many of you. Many of you already know more than this man knows about how things work. And so, but he is someone who does have some powers, and through his position. And so, some of these statements we have to sort of listen to and say, okay, he's saying that today. Today, it doesn't mean a damn thing because he's just talking. But what could he do tomorrow? What could he do next week? What is possible to do? So, firstly, ignore what Trump says. It's just Trump being Trump. Just he loves to get his base worked up about things. The way he came to power actually was by telling people, and he's done this very, very well. He's very good at this. He tells people, these people over here are the reason that your life is crappy. Right? So the MAGA base typically are poor, uneducated white folks in America. They typically live outside of the big cities. They are, if you look at the voting maps, you'll note that almost every big city tends to go blue, tends to go sort of more towards the Democrats. But when you get out into rural areas or semi-rural areas, and in many parts of America, you'll see, less educated people, let's say, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but let's be honest, that's the reality. Less educated people, whiter folks, who are, who are perhaps struggling to make ends meet, etc. And when Trump stands up and stood up and says, "Hey, that's this group of people or this group of people, they're the people that are making your life bad. Me and my billionaire friends are not the people that are making your life bad. It's those other people. It's this group of people or that group of people." And so there's nothing he likes more than to have another group of people that he can point at to tell his base that they're going to be better off when he's taking care of that group of people, right? He needs those targets. He absolutely needs those targets. And right now, politically, he's actually struggling. He's doing very badly at the moment because the economy is worsening. His tariffs, are affecting the economy. The Epstein list, which is a sort of a political scandal that's going on over here, is bad news for Trump because he rose to power saying he was going to release this list of and all the information about Epstein, and then lo and behold, because his name is all over those documents, he then didn't want to release that information. And his base, actually, more than anyone else, his base are the ones that are now clamoring for that information, and that's attacking and undermining his base. So what does a cornered animal do? A cornered animal will fight, right? Sometimes you can get a completely docile animal that isn't going to give you any harm at all. But if it's cornered, if it's having, if it feels like it's threatened, it's going to attack, right? And that's what Trump does. He's like a little, a savage little kitten. He's going to attack, right? Perfectly docile most of the time. You can just laugh at it most of the time. It's a little kitten. But corner that little kitten, and it might scratch you. And that's basically what's going to go on right now, right? Trump is lashing out, and it suits him politically to do that because it will take attention away from the crappy things he's doing that are not working well, right? And I could go on and list many more things that are not working well politically, but in recent elections, Democrats just wiped the floor with the Republicans. The Democrats are enjoying a resurgence in power because of things going so badly under Trump's regime. Okay, so Trump therefore may lash out, and he would always prefer to have a group of people that he can lash out against. And he's surrounded by folks such as Stephen Miller, who give him obvious targets to lash out at, right? I mean, the immigration deportations, not even that is going that well, right? Not even the deportations thing is going that well. And that's, again, worrying the base. Like, they're not seeing millions of people being flown out of the country as they expected. And so, the people in charge of the immigration nastiness, like Stephen Miller, are also sort of working behind the scenes to try and influence Trump to do ever more and more aggressive and anti-immigrant things. So, we could see an increase in that sort of behavior from Trump, without doubt. And so it wasn't a complete surprise to me yesterday when he came out and made his remarks. Okay. Now, I've already said, Twitter comments, Facebook comments, they are not law, right? The next thing that a president can do is, well, there's a couple of routes that the president could go down. One is the power of executive order, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And the other is through law, actual creation of law, right? Now, the president does not create laws, okay? The way laws are created is that a bill is suggested or put forward by someone in the House, someone in Congress, either the Senate or the House, can put forward a bill, and a bill has to pass both houses of Congress, and also then get signed by the president, right? So there's a process by which it goes on. There's some people have asked me at the moment about the Pause Act, right? This is a bill that has been floated by some, sort of what I would call backbench Republicans, fairly minor Republicans, saying that they want to pause immigration fully, right? And that's just a proposed bill. It goes through committees. If there's any interest in that bill, maybe it would get a vote at the House. In Congress, either through the House or through the Senate. But it has to pass all of those things. It has to go through committees, has to go through the House and be approved there, and it has to go through the Senate. And the government right now, Trump administration, has weakness in all of those areas, right? And so it's very difficult to get laws passed. Particularly in a weak government situation where, where there isn't the strength. Now, a few months ago, Trump could have waved his magic wand, for example, and within the Republican Party, he could have said to all the Republicans, hey guys, here's my bill. I want this to happen. You guys make it happen and I'll sign it, right? And he was powerful enough a few months ago through his reputation and so on and his popularism that Trump himself probably could have pushed through some sort of bill and got most Republicans to vote for it. But right now, many Republicans feel that Trump's involvement with Trump is actually weakening their position. Many of them are facing decimation in the midterm elections that will come up in a year's time. Some ardent Trump followers, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, have, she's just announced her resignation because she can see the writing on the wall. There's going to be an absolute decimation of the Republican Party in the next midterms, and Trump's cover, Trump's power is being eroded because people that support him tend to lose their elections. That's basically what's going on. And in that world, Trump doesn't have enough political clout to push through bills from his side. And so, he's in a difficult position, and the Republicans are not that powerful without that sort of unity that Trump gave them. For a while, Trump's cover was kind of, pretty strong. So the chance of new immigration law coming through to say permanent blockages of individual countries and or whole regions, or some sort of definition of third world countries, whatever the hell that means. Those sort of immigration change, or also, by the way, removing the DV lottery, or doing those sort of things. Those things need law changes. They cannot be done any other way. And right now, it's very unlikely that we would see the Republicans with enough strength to pass immigration law, because it's very unlikely they'll get agreement on any of those things, even within their own ranks, let alone once they try and get enough Democrats to support their position. So it's very unlikely we're going to see any sort of law changes on immigration in the short term, and probably not now in the remainder of Trump's 3 years in office, because Trump is going to be severely weakened in the coming months, I think, and leading up to the midterms. So, although I have to say, incidents like this, a clever politician is able to take advantage of situations like this latest shooting, to sort of stir up some support, right? And I've seen that throughout my whole life. For example, back in the in the late 70s, I guess it was it late 70s? Yeah, around about 1980. I forget the years, but the Argentinian invasion of the Falkland Islands, which they called Las Malvinas, and I'm sorry to my family in Buenos Aires. This is a sore point for within my own extended family. But Argentina invaded British territory. They didn't agree it should be British territory, and they saw it as their territory. It was much closer to Argentina than the UK. And at the time, Maggie Thatcher was the prime minister in charge of the UK, and she didn't take it. Many prime ministers probably would have said, "Oh well, it's the Falkland Islands. Who cares? It's thousands of miles from us. It's not really that important anyway. Let's not fight. Let's not fight to do that." Maggie Thatcher actually immediately fought, and she mounted a defense of the islands, and it was an incredible operation to watch. And I had friends who went away to fight that fight, and Britain won that battle against the odds, frankly, thousands of miles away, and with very little sort of planning or preparation, through sheer determination, guts, and good fighting. And reclaimed, for Britain, reclaimed the Falkland Islands. Many men on both sides died during that conflict. It shouldn't have happened, but that's the way things go on sometimes. But what happened politically is my point. And politically, that was extremely beneficial for Maggie Thatcher at that time. Because she pulled it off, she won, she achieved something. Right now, Trump has watched those sort of things happen, and he's learned some of those lessons, and so he knows that if he can do something and be successful at it, that he'll increase support from his base, and if his base is stronger behind him, then he'll get more political support from Republican senators and Republican congressmen, right? So there is a possibility that he might try and turn this to his advantage. I wouldn't be at all surprised, and he might achieve that, right? So we have to be a little bit careful, but I think on balance, I don't think there's going to be a new immigration law that can suddenly sort of make its way through the House, like the Pause Act, to stop immigration completely for a period of time. I just don't see any chance that sort of extreme measures like that, or even smaller measures, can go through a very divided, very ineffective Congress at the moment. Okay, so what else can Trump do? Trump can do executive orders, right? Now, he has a particular power. Let me show this. This is something that he's used before, and to great effect. And it is a power that he has. There's a power that he has called 212F, right? This is the INA, which is the Immigration Nationality Act. This is basically our complete set of immigration laws is contained in a document called the INA. And in section 212F, the president has the authority to suspend entry of migrants, right? Now, this this article sort of explains things in an easy to understand way. Let me just reject this, make this space a little bit bigger. Let me put me over there. And let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger so that you might be able to read it. You can certainly see where this is. You can Google this information as well. If you're interested, you could Google this. But I'm reading this at the American Immigration Council website here. And it's about 212F. And here's the section. I'll read the section to you. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. Okay, now that's a very, very broad piece of law. Now that is in the law. Okay, and what makes it broad? Well, it gives him the power to do by proclamation, which is a proclamation is a type of executive order. So it simply means that he can take one of these tweets or one of these Facebook posts or whatever, and have a lawyer work on that and turn that into a proclamation. And he could, and has in the past, shut down immigration entirely if he wanted for a period of time. Now, it says here, for such period as he shall deem necessary. I love the way it says he shall deem necessary. I wonder if they're going to change the law when we have our first female president. But anyway, as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants. So he can do this to immigrants and non-immigrants alike. It doesn't matter. He can shut down the borders if he wants to. He can do that, right? Now, this article goes on to talk about the powers, the broad powers that this section gives the president, and it says in there, whilst it does give broad powers, that power is not universal. Okay. Importantly, it does not allow the president to interfere with or subvert other parts of the INA or other federal laws. That includes INA 208, which grants people the right to seek asylum in the USA. And so that's that is an important part of the immigration law, and there is other parts of the immigration law that could supersede 212F in certain ways, right? And so how does this work? What's the reality of this? Well, we saw all of this play out in 2020. In 2020, there was the COVID crisis, and Trump was president at that time. He handled the COVID crisis extremely badly. But one of the things that he did was he did shut down immigration for a period of time. And that was argued through. He did that under this power of 212F. And he said, COVID's really bad. We don't know what's going on with that. And so we're just going to stop immigrants and non-immigrants coming to the country. That was almost immediately attacked through various lawsuits, because people argued that it was inhumane, unjust, and all sorts of things. In fact, I was involved in DV lottery lawsuits at that time. We had a series of lawsuits by various lawyers, Jesse Bless on behalf of the AILA organization and some other some other lawyers attacked a big pro bono case, attacked that law. We had Curtis Morrison, who floated a very big private case where people actually signed up to be plaintiffs of Curtis Morrison's lawsuit. He had many thousands of people on his lawsuit. We had Charles Cook and so on, and Charles Cook and others also attacked this law, and there were other lawyers involved as well. Those lawsuits got sort of amalgamated under one, and actually, in the end, we triumphed to some extent. We were not able to bring down the Trump ban on entry, but we were able to force the government to issue visas at that time. So between September 4th of 2020 and September 30th of 2020, about an additional 7,000 visas were issued during that time. They had a 6-month validity date on those visas. Most of them did. 6 months from the date of the medical, actually, technically, but we knew that there was a reasonable amount of time, and Trump was coming up for re-election in the January, and we assumed, okay, well, if the election goes to another president, maybe that other president would remove the ban, and that's precisely what happened in the end. So those 7,000 people that were previously, under a ban, once the ban was removed, those people were allowed to enter because they had a valid visa printed into their passport, right? So it helped thousands of people. Those lawsuits achieved an amazing win. But importantly, the 212F aspect, the power of the president to suspend entry, remained in place, and it had already been fought in another case known as Hawaii. That other case also fought that same sort of principle, and the principle is: should the power to suspend entry exist, and when can the president use it? So basically, this has been very well fought in a number of lawsuits, including lawsuits about DV lottery. And basically, it seems to me fairly solidly established that yes, 212F does give the president the right to ban entry, but it needs to be somewhat selective. It needs to be for good reason. It can't be unreasonable in everybody else's mind that he just does that in some random way, right? It can't be permanent, because if it was a permanent change, that would mean that he was actually creating new law. He's going against the laws that already exist. If the INA already has a law that says we should allow entry and we should allow immigration to happen, and so on, and Trump writes an executive order or proclamation that stops that permanently, that would be a step too far. That would be almost certain to be attacked and brought down by lawsuits. Those lawsuits would take time, and so in the short term, a proclamation can be very impactful. It might take months to attack those proclamations. So he can do damage without a doubt. He can cause difficult times, but he's unlikely to be able to, by proclamation only, make any permanent changes or do anything like that. He cannot, by proclamation, for example, remove the DV lottery. Because it's a part of immigration law already. It's already described in immigration law, and he can't undo law. He can only operate as a chief executive of a company by working within the powers that he has, and he can't sort of step outside those bounds or overuse those powers. And in the case of 212F, that power has to be somewhat justified. It can be tested. It can be brought down. Okay, so what's likely to happen? I don't think we're going to see any new laws created. I've already touched on that. I think we are likely to see some sort of proclamation and or some sort of enhancement of the existing ban. Remember, as far as DV lottery is concerned, there are right now 19 countries that are effectively banned, including Afghanistan. And so, there is a ban on those folks anyway. And the government, again, have reverted to form, and they are not even issuing the visas because, the ban says we're not going to allow entry. But the government have taken that to mean, again, that they don't even have to issue visas. But because, that could probably be fought, and Curtis Morrison has fought that that particular aspect, like whether visas should be issued or not during the ban. Technically speaking, I believe it would be possible, and it is possible, to challenge that aspect and force the issuance of a visa. However, if there isn't a time period when that ban is going to be removed, then that fight is somewhat pointless. If you're going to get a visa but you can't use it, is it worth it? It was worth it before in September of 2020 to us because we knew there was a decent chance at that time. We didn't know for sure that Trump was going to lose, but we were hoping that we would have a new president from the following year, and that's exactly what happened. In November of 2020, there was an election. Trump lost that election and was replaced on January the 20th of 2021, right, by Biden. And so we were fairly sure, given what Biden had said, that we were going to see a reversal of that blanket 212F ban. And that's actually what later happened. Okay, so would you go for? Would you attack the principle of I want my visa issued? Well, right now we've got 3 more years of Trump, right? And your visa validity is issued with 6 months validity. So it's probably not worth attacking that point right now, and that's the reason we're not seeing more lawsuits, doing that, because getting a visa but not being able to use it is kind of pointless, a little bit pointless. There may be some good reasons to do that, but largely speaking, for the majority of people, it probably doesn't make sense. Okay, so so what will Trump do in the coming days? There's a couple of ways this could go. He might just talk a bit more and see what the reaction of folks is, right? He might just talk through it, and he might say he's going to do this and do that. But whatever he says in Twitter world and on Truth Social and Facebook posts and so on, please just take that with a pinch of salt. It doesn't mean anything. Will he now turn this into another proclamation? Well, he's already got a proclamation out there that is banning those 19 countries. So he doesn't need another proclamation to achieve exactly what he's talking about already, right? It would only be to try and strengthen the proclamation in some way, to either include additional countries, and this particular attacker was from Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is already on the list, so I don't really see why we would do that. Or try and make it more permanent, but making it more permanent is difficult because that's against the rest of the immigration laws that we have. And so I'm not quite sure where he can go with this in any meaningful way. The definition of third world countries is a little bit worrying, right? What does he mean by that? In the past, he's used the term shithole countries, and he's applied that to various countries in Africa. But when we talk about third world countries, there's a technical definition for that, which Trump is probably unaware of. He doesn't know that definition. It's just something he just throws out there, right? He's heard this term third world country, and he just throws that term out there as if it means something. But that would have to be defined, right? And so, would that be defined in a way that includes more countries than the 19 we already have? That's a possibility. So we might see a strengthening of the travel ban and inclusion of more countries, for example. That's a possibility that we have to be aware of. And there's also a possibility that he surprises me and others by coming up with another proclamation that has some more teeth, and then we'll have to see whether whether that proclamation can be fought or not. And if it can be fought, who's going to fight that? Who's going to pay, for a lawsuit to attack those things? Whether we could do that from a DV lottery point of view, or whether we would have to sit back and watch others do it or not, I don't know. We'd have to wait and see what actually gets written and what gets ordered, right? And read that and consume that and understand and form a strategy on how to attack it. The worst thing about these proclamations and the executive orders is that they have immediate effect. They have immediate impact. Very often they might be put in place with a few days' notice, but they are immediately impactful in terms of, until they're fought, until they're removed by legal action, they're in place, right? And so the government will instantly react to whatever Trump says, which means that the Department of Homeland Security and USCIS, they will instantly start operating as if this is a new law. Until that's taken down by a lawsuit, that's how they'll operate. And so it's immediately impactful in that way. The government, particularly this government, tends to respond instantly to what Trump says. Okay, so if he does expand the scope of that current proclamation, either to more countries or in a more difficult way or something, it will be impactful, right? And so we have to sort of bear that in mind. But it's pure speculation at this point about whether he's going to do anything at all. And so I really want you to try and be calm. Don't necessarily assume that the sky is falling when it hasn't actually fallen yet. Don't take Trump's words as law. Let's wait and see what he says in an executive order, and we'll go from there, or a proclamation. On the other hand, there are some things that you must do at the moment, particularly if you're from a country that you feel may be included in Trump's mind as one of the third world countries. If you're from, most countries in Europe, you probably don't have anything to worry about. But if you're from, some of the poorer countries around the world, let's say in Africa or Asia or whatever, you may have reason to worry. And so it's very important in this time to sort of to bear in mind some pieces of advice that you've always got from me and from others. And there's a couple of things that I would say. If you are sitting on, if you've been issued a visa and you're sitting on that visa right now, you're probably better off, if you're from one of the countries that you feel may be included in a ban at some point, you're probably better off to look at ways to get to America as soon as possible. Because once you've entered and activated your status as green card holder, you're much safer than when you're sitting there with a visa. With the last travel ban, the travel ban was implemented and said that existing visa holders would not be affected. But in reality, what happened was the embassies actually took back some visas and canceled those visas. They shouldn't have done that, but they did it. Okay, and so if you've got a passport with a visa in it, and you have the financial ability to do so, do an activation trip to America. Get on a plane, come to America. You can leave the same day or a couple of days later, whatever you want. But once you've entered America and activated your status, you're no longer just a visa holder. You're actually a green card holder. You're a lawful permanent resident, and you have much more right of re-entry and that sort of thing at that point. So if you've got a visa already, please use it. Don't just sit on it. Curtis Morrison has talked about this many times, and he's got a famous little cartoon where he shows someone packing their bags and running to the airport, and that's the image that you should have in your mind, right? You get a visa, get in a plane, and get to America, right? why would you sit and wait? There is a possibility that at some point he implements a complete ban. He could say, we're stopping all immigration. Now, if he did that, undoubtedly that would be attacked by various organizations through the courts. So that would probably be removed after some time. But how long would it take, right? So you don't want to be in that position. So if you've got a visa, use the visa. If you're going for interview, please prepare for your interview properly so that you don't cause yourself unnecessary delay after the interview. Prepare for the bloody interview, please. Read the instructions. Make sure you've got all your documents. Make sure your documents are up to date. If you're unsure whether your police certificate is new enough or something like that, in all cases, just do what you can to make sure that you don't have a problem. If you've got a police certificate that you think is too old, well, get a new police certificate. Don't even bother asking me about it. Just do it, right? Prepare as well as you possibly can. Go to the interview prepared with financial resource information. Go with all of your education information. Go with information about what you intend to do, where you intend to stay. Go to the interview with information that says you've looked into a health insurance policy in the USA through healthcare.gov, for example. Go to the interview properly prepared. If you don't do that after everything I've said to you, then you're a bloody fool, okay? Because if you turn up at the interview and you give all the required documents, you're in good shape normally. But you should also have some other documents that are not, strictly speaking, required documents, but it shows that you're properly prepared. And properly prepared people tend to get visas issued faster and immediately, okay? And then as soon as you get your visa issued, again, you're back in that situation. You got your visa issued, get to the airport, right? Don't wait, okay? So if you've got a visa, get yourself to the airport as quick as you can. Please consider doing that if you can. If you're waiting for an interview, but you're about to interview, make sure you're properly prepared. And sometimes you'll go to the interview and, through no fault of your own preparation, you will still be put onto a 221G administrative processing period where they're doing additional background checks and so on. There's not much you can do about that, but you can avoid it to some extent by taking more documentation to the interview and being properly prepared, right? So please do that. Then in terms of whether you should worry about what Trump says or not, I wouldn't worry most of the time about what Trump says. Remember, his nickname is Taco. He talks a lot of bullshit and does less than he talks about. It will partly depend on the reactions that he gets from people surrounding him to see whether he's got the political capital needed to push through various decisions that he wants to make. If he thinks it's politically advantageous, he will do it. He will try it, right? But whether he will succeed or not is another question, right? And you have to be prepared for his his knee-jerk reactions. And make sure you're not caught out by one of those, okay? Okay, I think that's probably all I wanted to sort of go over. It's been a fairly long video. I'm hoping you managed to stay awake through all of this. But I'm hoping that was useful. I'm happy to take questions on this topic. I would rather that you didn't ask me questions about something I've already discussed in this video. But if you feel there's something I didn't discuss and you want to ask a question, by all means do that, either on YouTube under the video, or better yet, at BritSimonSays.com. That's where I answer all the questions. I answer every single question. Literally, me personally, I answer every question that I'm asked on BritSimonSays.com. Usually within a few hours. I check that every single day and I answer questions every single day. So if you have a question, go to BritSimonSays.com and ask me there. What have I not covered? I think I've covered everything. By now, you should be subscribed to my channel. If you're not already subscribed, please do that. Please also give me a thumbs up on this video if you can to help this video get pushed out to as many people as possible. Pretty soon I'll go through having 100,000 subscribers. So thank you to all of you that are already subscribed to me, and thank you for listening. I do appreciate that very much. It really thrills me, gives me warmth in my heart that so many people listen in. And many times when I go live, many times, I have people coming back who immigrated using my help years ago, and they come back to say hi, and I love that. So if you get a chance to do that, by all means, please do come in and say hi in one of my lives. I do appreciate that. Or drop me a message on BritSimonSays.com. I'd like that too. All right. Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll be live over this weekend for normal question and answers. Okay. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.